There's something profoundly powerful about a woman who chooses to be alone, not because she's lonely, not because she's been abandoned, but because she understands the value of her own company. See, in a world that constantly tells us we need to belong, to fit in, to be surrounded by people, choosing solitude becomes an act of courage. It's not isolation, it's intention. It's the quiet confidence of someone who doesn't need validation to know her worth. And here's the irony: the woman who spends time alone isn't disconnected from the world. She's deeply connected to herself. She listens to her thoughts. She understands her emotions. She learns what truly matters and what doesn't. Most people run from silence because silence makes them face the truth. But the woman who embraces it becomes unstoppable. Because once you learn to stand strong in your solitude, no one and nothing can shake your foundation again. This is where real strength begins. Solitude builds self-awareness because when a woman chooses to be alone, she creates a space to hear her own voice again. Most people live in constant noise: social media, conversations, work, expectations, opinions. The world around us moves so fast that we often forget to pause long enough to ask ourselves, who am I really? Solitude forces that pause. It strips away distractions, and when all the noise is gone, what remains is the raw, unfiltered truth of who we are. It can be uncomfortable at first because silence reveals what we've been running from. But for the woman who chooses to face it, that silence becomes her greatest teacher. When she spends time alone, she begins to see her patterns. She starts to notice how she reacts, what triggers her emotions, what brings her peace. She realizes how much of her identity was built around pleasing others, fitting into expectations, or being who the world told her to be. Solitude becomes a mirror, reflecting back both her strength and her insecurities. And as she sits with them long enough, she learns that neither defines her completely. Awareness gives her the power to choose. Instead of living on autopilot, she begins to make conscious choices about what she values, who she allows into her life, and what truly matters to her growth. There's something deeply transformative about observing your own mind without interruption. When a woman is surrounded by people, her thoughts often get influenced. She absorbs the emotions and energy around her, but in solitude, she learns to differentiate between her own voice and the voices of others. She learns to ask, is this what I truly believe, or is this what I was taught to believe? That question alone can change everything, because when she starts questioning, she starts reclaiming. Solitude gives her back her agency. It helps her move from a life of reaction to a life of intention. In the quiet, she also rediscovers her intuition, the inner compass that often gets silenced by the chaos of the outside world. Intuition is not loud. It's subtle, soft, and easily drowned out. But when she's alone, she learns to listen to it. She starts trusting her gut, recognizing patterns and sensing when something aligns or feels off. This awareness becomes her greatest strength because it keeps her grounded even when life gets unpredictable. She no longer needs constant reassurance. She has learned to trust herself. And that self-trust radiates outward. It's visible in her decisions, her boundaries, and the way she carries herself. Solitude also teaches emotional honesty. When she's alone, there's no one left to perform for, no one to impress, no mask to wear. The image she presents to the world falls away, and she meets the most authentic version of herself. Sometimes that encounter is painful. She might realize how much she's compromised for acceptance, how often she's ignored her own needs to keep others comfortable. But that realization is liberating because awareness precedes change. Once she sees what's been holding her back, she can finally start to let go. Solitude doesn't make her hard, it makes her whole. It helps her embrace every part of herself. The strong, the broken, the confused, the brave without judgment. There's also an emotional reset that happens in solitude. When she disconnects from constant interaction, her nervous system calms down. The overstimulation fades, and she begins to feel grounded again. In that stillness, she gains clarity. Problems that once felt overwhelming begin to look manageable. Situations that used to drain her no longer hold power. She begins to understand that peace isn't something she finds out there, it's something she builds within. And the more she cultivates that inner peace, the more aware she becomes of how fragile and sacred her energy is. That awareness makes her selective, not because she's arrogant, but because she's learned to protect what sustains her. Bucket, self-awareness through solitude is not about isolation, it's about alignment. It's not about cutting the world off, but about reconnecting with it from a place of wholeness. When a woman knows herself deeply, Bucket, she no longer seeks relationships, careers, or approval to fill her. She engages with life differently. Her yes means yes, her no means no. She doesn't chase, she attracts. Because she understands what she brings to the table, and she's not afraid to eat alone if necessary. That's the kind of strength solitude builds. Not loud or forceful, but steady and unshakable. It's easy to think of solitude as loneliness, but the truth is, loneliness happens when we are disconnected from ourselves, not when we are physically alone. Many people are surrounded by others yet feel profoundly lonely because they don't truly know who they are. The woman who embraces solitude breaks that cycle. She doesn't fear being alone because she's found companionship in her own presence. She enjoys her own thoughts, her own rhythm, her own silence. Bucket, that doesn't mean she doesn't value connection. It means she doesn't depend on it to feel whole. And that shift changes everything about how she relates to the world. When she spends time alone, she also develops self-compassion. She learns to sit with her mistakes without self-criticism. She learns to forgive herself, to nurture herself, to talk to herself kindly. That inner dialogue transforms her confidence. Because true confidence doesn't come from external validation, it comes from inner understanding. When she knows her flaws and accepts them, no one can use them against her. When she knows her worth, No one can convince her she's less than she is. That's what awareness gives her: freedom. Freedom from comparison, from fear, from the endless chase to prove herself. Solitude builds self-awareness, and self-awareness builds power, the kind of power that doesn't need to dominate or control, but simply is. It's quiet, calm, and deeply rooted. It's the kind of power that makes her walk into any room and instantly change its energy, not because she demands attention, but because she carries presence. That presence comes from knowing who she is and what she stands for. It's the unshakable knowing that even if everything else were taken away, she would still be enough. Independence breeds confidence because when a woman learns to rely on herself, she begins to understand the depth of her own capabilities. Most of us are taught, consciously or not, that strength comes from support. A bucket that we are safest when we have someone to lean on. But there comes a point in every woman's life when she realizes that the only constant she will ever truly have is herself. And that realization is not lonely, it's liberating, because in that moment she stops waiting for someone to rescue her, validate her, or give her permission to move forward. Bucket, she becomes the source of her own stability. When a woman starts to make decisions on her own, she begins to trust her judgment. She learns to listen to her instincts instead of second-guessing them. Every challenge she faces becomes a lesson in resilience. She stops measuring her worth by how much approval she receives from others and starts measuring it by how much faith she has in herself. That shift is powerful because it moves her from dependency to empowerment. The more she experiences her own strength, the more confidence she builds, not the loud, boastful kind, but the quiet assurance that she can handle whatever comes her way. Independence doesn't mean she rejects help or connection. It means she's not defined by it. When she chooses to stand on her own, she learns what she's truly made of. It's easy to feel strong when surrounded by support, but true confidence is forged in moments of solitude and uncertainty. It's when she has no one to call, no easy way out, bucket, that she discovers the inner resources she never knew she had. She realizes she can problem solve, adapt, rebuild. Each time she picks herself up, that inner voice grows louder, whispering, "You did it once. You can do it again." That's how confidence becomes unshakable. It's built on lived proof, not empty reassurance. There's also a deep sense of ownership that comes with independence. When a woman takes charge of her own life, she learns to take responsibility for her choices, both the good and the bad. She no longer blames circumstances or people for where she is. Instead, bucket, she focuses on what she can control. That mindset gives her power because responsibility and freedom go hand in hand. The more she takes ownership, the more capable she feels. She learns that every decision, no matter how small, shapes her path, and that awareness turns her from a passive participant in her life into an active creator of it. Independence also builds confidence through self-reliance. Bucket, when she learns to meet her own needs, emotionally, financially, mentally, she stops seeking external sources to fill her emptiness. She becomes whole. This doesn't mean she isolates herself from the world. It means she enters relationships from a place of strength rather than need. She doesn't depend on someone to complete her, to make her feel loved, or to define her value. Instead, the bucket, she brings her own completeness to the table, and that changes everything about the dynamics of her connections. When she doesn't need, she can truly choose. She loves not out of fear of being alone, but out of genuine appreciation for another's presence. Every independent step she takes reinforces her confidence, paying her own bills, setting her own goals, solving her own problems. All these small victories accumulate over time. Confidence is not something that appears overnight. It's built through repetition, through the daily act of showing up for herself. Empty the bucket. Each time she does something she once thought she couldn't, the boundaries of her limitations expand. She starts to trust her ability to figure things out even when she doesn't have all the answers. That self-trust is what makes her unstoppable. It's the foundation of authentic confidence, the kind that can't be shaken by rejection, failure, or doubt. The more she embraces her independence, bucket, the less she fears solitude. She begins to enjoy her own company because she no longer sees being alone as being incomplete. She understands that her independence isn't about proving something to anyone. It's about honoring herself. It's about knowing that she is capable of standing tall even when the world expects her to bend. She finds joy in doing things for herself, in making choices that align with her values rather than what's expected of her. That autonomy fuels her self-respect. And self-respect in turn feeds confidence, because when she respects her own boundaries, her own worth, her own journey, she doesn't need the world to do it for her. Independence also helps her redefine success. When she's not tied to external definitions, titles, status, relationships, she can define success on her own terms. For some, success means wealth or recognition. But for the independent woman, success is peace. Bucket, it's waking up in the morning knowing she's living life by her own design. It's making choices that align with her heart, even when they're not popular. That kind of clarity only comes from confidence rooted in independence. It's the ability to stand firm in her truth, even when others question it, because she no longer lives for approval, she lives for authenticity. Empty the bucket. There's a certain magnetism that comes with a woman who is truly independent. It's not arrogance, it's self-assurance. People sense it when she walks into a room. They can feel that she's not seeking to impress anyone, yet her presence commands respect. Her confidence doesn't need validation because it's self-sustaining. It's the result of countless moments of courage. Times she said no when it would have been easier to say yes. Times she took risks when she could have played safe. Bucket. Times she stood alone when conformity would have been more comfortable. Those experiences sculpt her character. They build a strength that's not easily visible but deeply felt. Independence teaches her that vulnerability and strength can coexist. She learns that asking for help doesn't make her weak, it makes her wise. But she also knows she doesn't collapse when help isn't available. The bucket, she's learned to balance interdependence with self-reliance, to give without losing herself, to love without forgetting her own worth. And that balance is where true confidence thrives. It's not about being invincible. It's about knowing she can rise even when she falls. It's about trusting that she has within her everything she needs to rebuild, reinvent, and reimagine her life whenever necessary. Independence breeds confidence because it teaches her that she is the author of her own story. Every decision, every mistake, every triumph becomes a sentence in the book of her growth. She learns to celebrate her wins, however small, and to view her failures as stepping stones rather than setbacks. The more she embraces her independence, the more she realizes that confidence isn't a destination, it's a practice. It's built in the quiet moments when she chooses herself, when she keeps her promises to herself, when she shows up again and again even after the world told her she couldn't. That's where true confidence is born, in the heart of a woman who stands tall, not because someone lifted her up, but because she learned to stand on her own. Purpose grows in stillness because in the quiet moments of solitude, a woman begins to hear the subtle voice of her inner calling, the one that often gets drowned out by the noise of the world. Every day, bucket, she's surrounded by opinions, comparisons, and expectations. Everyone seems to have an idea of who she should be, what she should do, how she should live, and in trying to meet those expectations, the bucket, it's easy to lose touch with her own truth. But when she steps away from the noise, when she allows herself to sit in silence, she begins to reconnect with that inner voice. That voice doesn't shout, it whispers. It's patient but persistent, and when she finally listens, she starts to uncover her purpose, not the one society has assigned to her, but the one that truly belongs to her. Stillness creates clarity. Bucket, in a world that celebrates constant movement, stillness feels uncomfortable, even unnatural, but it's in that discomfort that growth begins. When she slows down, she starts to notice what truly matters. The things she once thought were urgent start to lose their grip, and the things that give her life meaning start to surface. She begins to ask deeper questions. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Bucket, what impact do I want to have? What feels aligned and what feels forced? These questions don't come from pressure, they come from presence. Purpose doesn't appear through striving, it appears through awareness. It's not found in the noise of ambition, but in the quiet moments of reflection. When a woman allows herself to be still, she becomes more attuned to her intuition. Intuition is the language of purpose. Bucket, it's that inner sense that guides her toward what feels right, even when logic can't explain it. The problem is, most people are too distracted to hear it. They fill every empty moment with noise, fearing that silence means doing nothing. But in truth, silence is where the most meaningful work happens. It's where the mind settles and the heart begins to speak. When she listens deeply, she starts to recognize the patterns in her life, the moments when she felt most alive, most connected, most fulfilled. Those moments are not random, they are clues pointing toward her purpose. Stillness also helps her separate what's real from what's performative. In the rush to be successful or admired, it's easy to chase goals that look impressive but feel empty. But when she takes time to be alone, she starts to feel the difference between external achievement and internal fulfillment. She realizes that purpose isn't about recognition or reward, it's about contribution. It's about doing something that resonates with her values, that brings meaning to her existence. In stillness, she stops asking, what do I want to have? And starts asking, who do I want to be? That shift is where purpose begins to take shape. When she becomes comfortable in silence, she also begins to face truths she once avoided. Stillness has a way of revealing what's unresolved, the fears, the insecurities, the unhealed wounds. At first, it's uncomfortable, it might even be painful, but through that process, she gains wisdom. Because purpose isn't born out of perfection, it's born out of understanding. It's when she acknowledges her pain, learns from it, and transforms it into empathy that she becomes truly powerful. That many of the most purposeful lives are built from struggle. In the stillness, she begins to see how her experiences, both the good and the bad, have shaped her for something greater. Bucket, purpose grows in stillness because stillness teaches patience. In a culture obsessed with instant results, purpose requires time. It unfolds slowly, layer by layer. It's not a destination that appears overnight. It's a path that reveals itself as she walks it. When she learns to wait, to trust the process, she begins to appreciate the journey instead of rushing toward an imagined finish line. Empty the bucket. She starts to understand that purpose is not something she finds outside of herself. It's something she uncovers within. And the more she listens, the clearer it becomes. Patience becomes her ally, and silence becomes her guide. In stillness, she also learns the difference between being busy and being productive. The world often rewards activity, not alignment. Empty the bucket, but just because she's moving doesn't mean she's progressing. Stillness allows her to realign her actions with her values. She starts doing things with intention rather than out of habit. Her work, her relationships, her choices, they all begin to reflect who she truly is. And when her actions align with her values, that's when she begins to live with purpose. Because purpose isn't just knowing what she wants, it's living in a way that expresses it daily. When she connects with her purpose through stillness, her confidence grows naturally. She no longer feels the need to compare her path with others because she understands that everyone's journey is different. Comparison fades when clarity appears. She stops chasing validation because she realizes her purpose is not a competition. It's a calling. It doesn't need to be justified or approved. It just needs to be lived. That kind of clarity is powerful because it frees her from the pressure to be everything to everyone. She becomes focused, intentional, grounded in her why, and that sense of direction brings peace even amid chaos. Stillness also nurtures creativity. When the mind is calm, it becomes open. New ideas, insights, and inspirations begin to flow naturally. Many people think creativity is about doing more, but in reality, it's about being more present. The woman who embraces stillness allows her imagination to wander. She connects dots that others overlook because she's not distracted by constant noise. Her ideas come from depth, not desperation, and through those ideas, her purpose takes tangible form, whether through her work, her art, her leadership, or her relationships. She begins to see her life as a canvas and herself as the artist, painting with intention and clarity. In the quiet, she learns that purpose is not about grand gestures, it's about consistency. It's in the small, daily choices that align with her values. It's in the way she speaks to others, the way she shows up, the way she uses her energy. Stillness teaches her to be deliberate, to act with awareness rather than impulse. And over time, that awareness becomes her strength, because a woman rooted in purpose doesn't need to prove her worth. Her presence speaks it. She carries herself with calm assurance. Empty the bucket, knowing that everything she does comes from a place of alignment. In that stillness, she finds her direction, her meaning, and her power.